Turn that up. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't hear you very well, but we've all got masks on. It's probably hard to muffle. So I did get the introduction. How's everybody doing today? I can't hear anything. All right, so everybody's good? Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. So as Heather mentioned, my name is Jay Rell, R-E-L-L. I wrote my first book called The Black Men Who Struck Oil. Welcome, everybody. Come on in, have a seat. We appreciate you. I didn't think anybody was going to show up today. I appreciate you guys coming in. Okay. We're all set? Excellent. Also, I wanted to thank you guys for the opportunity to come in and talk to you guys. I also had the opportunity to wear my hat today. I think I bought this hat about 2 years ago. Then we got hit with the pandemic and I had no place to wear it. So thank you very much for giving me a chance to wear the brim. All right, I appreciate it. So you guys, this is a Native Studies class? Yes? I can't hear. Awesome. How many of you guys, such as myself, are immigrants? Anybody an immigrant in here? Raise your hands. All right. Awesome. Where are we from? Where are we from? Rep your set here. Where are we at? Can't hear you. I'm sorry? India? Oh, come on. Where? Syria? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Where else? Afghanistan? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Anywhere else? Iran's in the house. Persian legacy. Awesome. Thank you. Iraq. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Anywhere in Africa? Africa in the house? Where? Somalia? Somalia's in the house? Awesome. Ethiopia? Kenya? Great. Fantastic. Welcome, welcome. Beautiful. Appreciate you. Burundi's in the house? Okay, fantastic. Beautiful. So thank you so much, guys. And I'm an American guy from New York originally. I've been here a few years. I think somebody mentioned Somalia. Yes. Okay, great. Yeah, my ex-wife. Hey. My ex-wife is from Somalia. So yeah, beautiful country, beautiful women, beautiful place to be. Thank you. Right now, guys, I am live here at the Ottawa Black Business Association. This is the headquarters, so the setup here. This was all done here at 235 Montreal Road, the Ottawa Black Business Association. If you are a content creator, all right, if that's something that you're into, podcasting, video, whatever have you, this is a great place to be. There's memberships to join. And once you are a member, you have access to a fantastic facility. Also, as students, as you probably know, right now, reading and writing is kind of not a big deal anymore. A lot of times you can do, some of your assignments by interviewing people, right? Or by doing a podcast. So this is a great place for that. They've got a whole team here that can come in, hook up the microphones, the lighting, and everything. So Ottawa Black Business Association, the phone number is 613-422-5292. And they've got a great facility here if that's something that you're looking forward to taking care of. Okay? Great place to be. Fan. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay. So since we're all immigrants here, I I would assume that you guys had some memoirs or things like that to write for class. Is that true? Kind of, yeah. So I bet there's some fantastic stories that you guys can write. Do we have anyone who's any writers in the house today? Okay. What's the subject? What are we writing about? What's that? Fantastic, fantastic. And I guess is that a bit of experience on your end as well? Wow. Okay. 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 And I totally understand where you're coming from. I think when you do write, as far as my own writing is concerned, I wanted to write things that were based off of some of my own experiences, and then use maybe a little bit of my own imagination to create a story. Okay. My work is fiction. I guess you were looking more as to were you writing fiction or nonfiction? Fiction as well. Okay, so you understand where I'm coming from. Okay, fantastic. If you do have, something ready, a manuscript ready, let me know. Okay, and that might be something I can help you out with. Okay, I don't know. I don't know if I can help you with that. I read typically good English and some bad English. Okay, that's just how it works for me. So the hearing for me to hear you guys is a little hard. I don't know why I keep doing this. Like I can hear out of the microphone. So all right, I'll work on that. Okay. So the book that I wrote, this one right here, see that? The Black Man Who Struck Oil, a great read. Okay, it is fiction. There's some violence in there. All right. There's some humor. All right, and it's a really great story, and I encourage you guys to check it out. I'll read a couple of chapters for you today about the book. I'll try not to disclose the plot. All right, but we'll get a couple of chapters out of me anyway. Okay. Any questions so far? Uh-oh. I couldn't hear. How much does it cost? What do you think this thing is worth right here? Huh? It's a thick book, okay? Murder, intrigue, humor, romance, okay? Some black empowerment messages in here. Invaluable. I think on Amazon though, Canadian, I think it runs about $20. Okay, so basically a little less, but not much less than a standard paperback fiction novel would be. Okay. Did I get any objections about the $20 or is that okay? All right, that wasn't too much. All right, fantastic. And you can find the book on Amazon. All right, Amazon.ca, Amazon.com, etc. The Black Man Who Struck Oil, or you can put my name in, Jay Rell, Jay space Rell. Okay. Another question? Awesome. Let me take you through the process as far as putting a book together from my perspective. When I was a kid, I grew up in a household with a lot of books. Okay, there was books everywhere. I remember there'd be books on the floor kind of stacked up as well. In these books, there was a lot of, you would call them revolutionary books, right? So there was a lot of Black Power books, Black history books. My pops was kind of more into like science and engineering. So there was like books on astrology, biology. There was Stephen Hawking's books and things like that on the shelf. So for me, reading was always, a big part of growing up. My siblings will joke that I really very rarely did actual schoolwork. I typically did my own studies on my own subjects that I like to do. Okay. So, that's how I grew up writing. I used to write short stories, right? I used to scribble in my notepad and keep them to the side and hoped one day, I would be able to put something out. So I went away to university, Norfolk State University. And there was an assignment. I took a creative writing class, and in it, we had to write a novella. And I think a novella is 50 to 75 pages. It's almost like a really short novel, I think, is a novella. So anyway, there's classifications for the size and the length of and word count of books. So we had to write this, and I wrote a story. All right, and you guys, we're all adults here, so I don't want to freak you guys out or anything like that. But I wrote a true story about a time where I worked for a drug operation for this guy named Georgie, who was a big drug dealer in the South Bronx and in Harlem. His name was they called him Boy George. He was a Puerto Rican guy. And he was a big top of the food chain drug dealer. So I needed a job. I didn't have any money. I was young. I was broke. So I wound up working in this place where they bagged up the drugs. So it was me and about 20 Puerto Rican women. They used to have their kids running around all over the place. Everybody's speaking Spanish. And anyway, I lasted about 2 weeks. I couldn't do it. It really wasn't for me. But I wrote a short story about my life and times in this operation for those 2 weeks. And I submitted it. And I remember my professor read it, came back to me and says, this was a true story, wasn't it? This really happened. And I go, yeah, that really happened. And she said, if you got some more of these kind of stories, man, you could sell this. This is some good stuff here. So I kept that in the back of my mind. Life goes on. And for me to write, you have to have experiences, right, in your life. So that's why, you'll see a lot of authors and it's kind of like an old man or an old woman kind of business. And the reason it is because you kind of have to go through a few things before, you can write something substantial. Unless you're a young person who's got quite the story and has been through a lot of stuff already, right? Like our young author here from Iraq, right? Okay, so you had to go through a few things in order to put some things on paper. So that's what happened to me. All right, so years later, I wrote a full book, okay, and I just had it stashed in a desk, just like a lot of writers, right? I circulated it to a few friends. They said, hey, my brother read it, a couple of people close to me. I said, this is really well written. This is good stuff. And then eventually I was out someplace. I wound up talking about what I'd like to do here as far as the writing goes. And the next thing you know, somebody knew somebody. Okay. And the next thing you know, my book is getting published and coming out and available for sale. I wound up linking up with a friend of mine who was a graphic design artist, an award-winning guy, and he put the cover together for me. And that's how it works. You'd be surprised at how much resources you may have in your own inner circle. Okay, if you just ask, right? Can you do this? Can someone do that? And the next thing you've got some support. Okay, so that's kind of how it worked out for me. This book had good reviews. People tended to enjoy it. So now I'm set to release the next one. Okay. And that's how it works, man. Any questions? No questions. I told you I worked in the drug operation for 2 weeks and nobody was curious about that. Uh-oh. No, that didn't work for anybody. Okay. All right.
Oh, yeah. Okay, she said she's happy you decided to stop in 2 weeks.
You're hired. Okay, there you go. What happened?
Master Joey wants to know if you had to pass the dress.
No. Listen, the gym been closed for a while, but I didn't lose that much weight, brother. No, I'm not testing any drugs. That was something that got worked out on the street. So no testing, no testing. Just honestly, all it was bagging. Okay, so there's a pile there in front of you. You got the bags. You got this spoon. All right, that was a quarter. Right. So this is a little too much detail, maybe, but they got the quarter spoons. Okay, so if you guys bake or whatever, you got the different levels of spoons, right? So there was the quarter, right? A quarter spoon, and that was it. Dig, pack, seal, next, repeat. And that was it for 12 hours. Okay, so that's how that worked. Okay. The old quarter spoon, right? I don't think they make those anymore. All right. Anything else? Oh, okay. This was powder cocaine, sir. Okay. Yeah, and if you guys remember, I'm not sure if you remember, McDonald's used to have that little plastic spoon. I don't know if I'm doing too much here, but McDonald's used to have a plastic spoon, right, that you would stir your coffee with. They don't make those anymore, but that would be 1 gram. All right. Anyway, are we done with the drug talk? Thank you.
How did your exposure to reading? You said that you're a very conscious person. So how did your exposure to all the books that were in your house help with your decision to leave that operation?
Great question. So, to leave the operation. Okay. These kind of things are done in your own community. Okay, oftentimes, right? And there's an exploitation that is happening to put money in your own pocket. And with the books that I was reading, revolutionary stories about people coming together and overcoming obstacles from, say, a Black perspective, it didn't really jibe well having that kind of knowledge and actually doing something that was counterproductive to all of that. So it didn't sit right with my soul, number one. And also, it was just a really crappy work environment as well, So, so as far as, how those early books and early readings had to do with the influence, on another level, it did get me to write my own stuff. And did I answer your question? Okay, awesome. Also, those early readings that I used to read about, these revolutionary books about overcoming obstacles and coming together, these were the things that I wasn't taught in school about Black American culture, right? It was always a victim narrative, right? I don't know if you guys are familiar with any kind of Black history at all as far as America is concerned, but typically they'll teach you, slavery and then Martin Luther King and people getting fire hosed and beat up by the police and things like that. And the books that I was reading told me a whole different narrative, right? So, from my perspective, I wanted to control that narrative. All right. Now, you guys are in a Native Studies class right now, correct? Right. So, the narrative for the Native population in Canada that you're taught or that you see, or that you might hear from people that may have been born in Canada are totally different than what you're probably learning in class. Okay. If you guys are from, let's say you're from Africa, okay, what's the narrative of Africa to people over here? What do they think? They think child soldier, or you guys live in a mud hut, right? Or something to that effect, correct? No? Yeah, right? Sorry, you guys might have to nod, man. I can't really hear you guys too well. So personally, I've been to Africa myself. I dated a woman, she was from Ethiopia. And I went over there and her house was as big as your school. Okay. So the narrative, is, these are all poor people, these are all backwards people, and nothing could be further than the truth, right? Or, in the Middle East, they're all, they're riding camels and they're this and they're that. And that's just a narrative, right? So, the truth. So for me, to do my own little part as far as controlling the narrative for what I represent was I put it on paper. Okay. So if you are, from another country and you are not happy with how you guys are portrayed, you can do something about it as far as changing your own narrative. So that was a very big reason for me to pick up the pen and do some writing. Yeah. Any other questions? Awesome. All right. So, and like I said, as far as controlling the narrative, for me personally, I watch movies. I like movies with some gangster stuff in it. Is anybody into that? Anybody raise your hand? Anybody like gangster movies? No? Nobody, huh? You guys all like musicals and romance stuff? Or silly comedies. That's cool too. All right, for me personally, I do like I like some tough guy stuff. I like a little bit of action. I like a little bit of gangster stuff, and I like it to not be too ignorant. Okay, so from my perspective, I used to run around in Harlem for a little bit. Anybody heard of Harlem, New York? Anybody? Raise your hands. No, nobody. Hey, we got one. Awesome. So and I was never a tough guy at all. I was never in a gang or anything crazy like that. I was always just a regular dude. I used to play ball and I was just a friendly guy. And it was weird. I wound up being around a lot of these tough guys and a lot of these, what you would call real street level guys. And I used to wind up being in situations that I had no business being in. Okay. Just kind of being along for the ride or just happen to be on the scene. Okay. So what I've taken from some of those experiences is I did put it in the book and, hopefully it's not too scary. And these are just part of the things that happened to me in my life and some of the people that I've met throughout the course of my life. And also, you're writing fiction, so you can enhance it a little bit, right? So that's what I did. Now, you guys are taking a Native Studies class, correct? So you guys are learning a lot about Canada, huh? Not as nice as you thought? Huh?
national agreement, but then defined Principle 4 and Principle 3. So they were kind of withholding information about genocide and refusing access to the TRC, the Truth and Reconciliation Committee. They refused to give them access to the archive. But then we were looking at how Canada does performative justice versus, actual justice.
Right. Yeah, that's yeah, a lot going on there, right? You guys have learned about residential schools and things of that nature as well. Yeah. Yeah. Probably not what you heard about Canada before you got here. Yes. Probably didn't hear about that. It's not something that's proposed. I believe that ended. Residential schools probably ended what, mid 90s? Heather, is that correct? 96. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And for you guys here, my immigrant community, myself included, the really ironic part about the treatment of Native American, excuse me, I'm American, so I say Native American sometimes, but the treatment of the First Nations people here, at one point it was just colonizers and First Nations, right? Those are the only ones that were in the country. So because of this treatment of the indigenous community, that's why you guys are here. That's why I'm here. Okay. And that's what you guys maybe want to think about, right? So all colonizer, what's the right word? Dominant societies, they have to have a buffer class, right? So they continue to have a buffer class that works as a buffer between themselves and the oppressed community. Example, in the United States, they will bring in immigrants from Africa and the Caribbean, and I think we're at 10%, and 10% of Black people in America are now immigrants from other countries, and another 10% are children of immigrants from other countries. So this way, you sort of wash out the narrative of the oppressed and replace them and keep a buffer between the dominant society and the ones you oppressed originally, right? Because you don't have a shared history of being oppressed in Canada, right? And you've signed up to come here, so you're all on board with what's happening, right? So that's why Canada continues to have immigrants, and hey, I'm one of them. All right, so hey, but just keep that in mind, though, guys, because I think as you guys get out there, you'll hear a lot of negative sentiments about the Native population in Canada. A lot. All right. It's the racism against the Native population is real. As just a Black guy from America, I've heard all the talk, right? Oh, they get a lot of free stuff, and they just have to work hard, and these kind of things. And as immigrants, they're hoping they bring us in and hope that we will carry that same thought. Okay. So I'm glad you guys are getting a little bit of knowledge about what's going on with the Native population in here. And it's not always pretty. Okay. One of the really cool books that I read about a little Native history was this one. Heather, you guys heard of this one? I Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. So this book here is basically a collection as to what happened to the Native population in the United States. And literally the whole book is just hearing about how, the Union Army, the United States Army basically just slaughtered everybody. The ones that survived got shipped off to, land that, you probably wouldn't want to live in. Okay. And some of the leaders wound up just, being exploited, going forward. So it was a really sad story. You hear stories about whole tribes being wiped out. And yeah, I don't know how deep you guys are going with it, but I Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee was a book that I think it was a #1 bestseller. It's probably, one of the bigger books as far as a Native experience, in North America. Cool. You guys just came from lunch? You guys still awake? I appreciate it. Any questions? I can't hear. What? You guys want to hear a couple of chapters? Yeah? Okay. So my writing style for me personally was I kind of had a New York frame of mind when I was writing. I wanted to write and for an audience that typically didn't read all of the time and didn't really have a lot of time to read. So I kept the chapters super short. All right. I kind of got right to the point as far as action is concerned and moving the plot along. So I wanted to keep short chapters, all right, and get to the point. Okay. So that way, if you're on a bus, you're on a train, you only got a few stops, you probably get a chapter or two in, before you got to get off. Okay. So that's kind of my style. Another thing that I did too that was unique to my style was I would have characters in the book that weren't significant characters to the plot, but they were sort of, it might be a guy behind the counter at a store, okay? But I would go back and sort of wrap up his story, in a couple of pages. Because I always thought that was interesting. I watched a movie once called Run, Lola, Run, and they would be running down the street, they'd bump into somebody, and they would freeze the camera on that person, and then they would show what's going to happen to that person in their life. Like super weird, like they wound up getting hit by a bus when they're old or something like that. So I kind of did it reverse. There's some minor characters that don't affect the plot, but I sort of delved into what they are as people and how they got to the point that they're at. So I'll read one of those chapters. I'm going to read the first chapter of the book. Remember, I did talk to you a little bit about there is some crime stuff in here. All right. So I don't want to shock anybody. Heather, that's going to be okay. We're all grown-ups here. Okay. You guys ready? Yeah. Okay. Awesome. All right, here we go. Let me know. There we go. The sun had been down for a while now, well past the time when the good citizens of Harlem turned the streets over to the underworld. This is where the hustlers, dealers, addicts, and real killers made their way through the night. For Anthony, he'd been living the life for years. The meticulous plots, the latex gloves under the leathers, the extra clips tucked snug in the cargo pocket. He was about that action. He parked his car and walked toward the buildings on 106th Street. There were people outside drinking beer, smoking weed, and talking about a whole lot of nothing. It was like the more things changed, the more things stayed the same around here. The loud malt liquor talk, induced chit-chat got quiet as he approached and remained that way as he walked past. Anthony could smell the fear. They all knew who he was, and more importantly, what he did. His war face was on, and the ones that read the street notes checked their shoelaces rather than meet his gaze. He was like the lion coming down to the river for a drink of water. Perhaps, if all remained quiet and still in his presence, the lion would drink his fill and let the herd live. He spotted the new kid on the bench, exactly where he was supposed to be. The kid had on a brown Fendi trench coat that didn't match the forecast, but went well for what lied ahead. Anthony locked eyes with him as he approached and nodded as he got up close. The kid nodded back and jumped to his feet as Anthony walked on, falling in step behind his left shoulder perfectly. Anthony never broke stride. He could hear the kid rubbing his hands together, correctly acknowledging the nervous gesture as a sign of respect. The two were in the elevator now, with Anthony pressing number 6. Someone had recently used the small space as a toilet, causing him to shake his head slightly in disgust. He hated the projects. No ownership equals no accountability equals some welfare recipient's piss on the bottom of his Timberlands. He glanced over at his company, who appeared oblivious to the circumstance. He was this African kid Peter recruited from one of the shelters downtown, built hard and thin as a blade. Rumor had it he was a child soldier from a place where the stakes typically run higher than in the streets of New York. The kid stood straighter than 6 o'clock as Anthony gave him the once-over. He would do. The silence was soon broken by Anthony's left fist banging on the door of apartment 6A. His face was twisted into a snarl as the kid stood behind him, glancing back and forth down the project hallway. He was sure a neighbor would stick his head out of their door to investigate the commotion, but no one did. See, lifespans could be short around here, and those who minded their own business squeezed out a few bonus years in comparison to a wannabe Good Samaritan. The sound of the door being banged on continued to echo without interruption. The chain on the door started to rattle, and thankfully Anthony stopped banging. The door creaked open maybe an inch or two, with him doing the rest. With a push, they were inside the apartment, a chrome 380 semi-automatic in the palm of his right hand. The kid entered behind him, the sawed-off shotgun now removed from beneath the Fendi trench. He walked swiftly toward the back rooms as Anthony pointed the pistol at the head of one Maria Manuel. "Where is Jose, Maria?" he asked, in a tone that suggested he was not a patient man. She was on one knee with a hand blocking her right cheek. Tears streamed down her face. Dios mío, please." Instead, Anthony cocked back the hammer and pointed it again, this time closer to the target. "Where is he, Maria?" The pistol was now flush against her temple. She was in full hysterics, mouth trembling, nose running. Anthony looked around the apartment. It was beyond filthy. Clothes were everywhere, toys were littered about, and he could see dishes piled high in the kitchen sink. The place was in such bad shape that he almost missed the little boy in the high chair when he came in. The boy looked too big for his seat, possibly because he was too old, but more than likely due to being fed a steady diet of sugar and empty calories. What the hell was a kid doing up at this hour for anyway? Anthony gritted his teeth and refrained from shooting his mother on the spot. "Mommy?" said the child, blinking with big, dark, curious eyes. It was as if he was demanding an explanation for the shouting and the crying, not to mention the big black man pointing the gun. Anthony tucked it away in his belt, walked over, unlocked the tray, and snatched the boy out of the high chair. With one hand, he carried the boy over to the window and with his free hand, yanked the window open. Maria let out a sickening moan. She crawled over to them, begging and pleading, her eyes bloodshot and swollen from the crying. Her face appeared frozen and disfigured. She tried to speak again, but no sound came out. Anthony paused for a moment to give a more detailed view of his surroundings. Underneath the scattered array of trash, he acknowledged some pretty decent furniture. There was a really nice fish tank that sat atop a tree trunk, with the tank being conformed to the odd shape of the tree. A few colorful fish were inside, probably in the $50 to $100 range. There was an ultra-thick cream carpet throughout the living room that might have been nice before all the juice stains took away the charm. The once matching drapes, blotted with dirt stains, looked like they may have been pricey. There were glass tables he could see fingerprints on top of fingerprints on from his vantage point, along with the obligatory 65-inch smart TV. Needless to say, there was a clear dereliction of duty on the part of Maria here. Anthony was furious as he yanked her up by the hair. He wanted her to watch. With his left hand holding the child and his right hand gripping Maria by the hair, he thrust the boy out of the 6th-story window, never taking his eyes off of her. If Jose doesn't have my money tonight, this little dirty piece of ish better grow wings. Comprende? Comprende? She choked and gasped out a response and barely nodded back as she watched her son dangle out of the window in the grip of the man with the gun. Anthony pulled the kid back inside and tossed him on the couch, the way you might toss a gum wrapper on the platform while you waited for the A train. With one violent swing of an arm gripping his butt end of a pistol, her silence was broken. She lay on the floor, whimpering softly in a pool of her own blood, a steady stream oozing from her nose and mouth. Anthony politely stepped around her. No need to kick a chick when she's down. At this point, the African kid was coming out of the back bedroom with the man duct taped around the mouth and wrists. He fit the description. It was definitely Jose. The kid swept Jose's feet out from under him, with Jose landing on his back in front of the couch. He stared down at Jose, and Jose remained still. His left eye was already swollen shut, with a trickle of blood now visible from beneath the tape over his mouth. The kid walked back to the bedroom again and returned with his shotgun along with an oversized gym bag. He tossed the bag down on the table and with gloved hands opened it to reveal bundles and bundles of legal tender, wrapped in rubber bands. Anthony snatched up the boy and carried him toward the back of the apartment. He opened the bedroom door. Inside was a single bed covered with a Spider-Man blanket with tiny panda bear slippers peeping out beneath it. The bed was perfectly made with the corners tucked, the kind of job a Marine drill sergeant would not begrudge. Around the room were bookshelves filled with children's books, all perfectly rowed. Anthony had to blink twice at the sight of the classic Pat the Bunny book facing outward on the display shelf above the bed. He wondered how two bum-ass Dominicans wound up with a Dorothy Cunhart. A PS4 console sat on the bottom shelf of a wall unit topped by a 50-inch screen. A Carmelo Anthony poster was on one wall and Odell Beckham on the other. Both were in frames. The room even smelled like baby powder. Anthony put the boy down on the bed and turned on the TV, closing the door on the way out. He propped the chair he brought from the kitchen under the doorknob and walked back into the living room. He taped Maria's hands and arms tightly, leaving both wrists and elbows touching each other. He then walked over to her husband and removed the belt from his pants. Jose remained on his back with the African kid pointing the shotgun at his chest. Anthony pulled Maria within sight of Jose and fastened a Hermes belt around her neck. Ever since discovering Richard Kuklinski, he'd always wanted to do this. He hoisted Maria up over his shoulder like he was Santa Claus carrying a big bag of presents, with Maria's feet flailing a foot off the ground. Anthony turned around so Jose could watch his wife's final moments. She squirmed about desperately, the sound of her muffled choking becoming fainter and fainter. Soon after the noise ended, her legs stopped kicking. Anthony held her up for another minute to make sure it was over. He finally dropped her to the floor, turned around and nodded at his accomplice. The kid nodded back. Wherever he was from, he'd seen this movie play out before. After leveling his shotgun, he blew Jose's brains all over the sky gray love seat. That's the chapter. Is that too much? Thank you. This is typically what I get when I read that first chapter. Did I put you to sleep? The voice is kind of deep. Did any?
Where is the kid when he actually fought with the question?
Say that again?
Where's the kid? The little. Is this where the kid was?
I can't hear, bro.
Where was the young child?
Okay, so when they walked in the apartment, remember he said the apartment was filthy, right? So remember he came in there, the apartment was filthy, and he said that he almost missed the kid sitting in the high chair, right? So they're there on a mission to find this guy, Jose, who owes them money, right? So he took the kid out of the tray, out of the high chair, opened up a window, and stuck the kid out the window. He didn't drop the kid, he stuck him out the window. And then when she cried, she did on her crying act. He brought the kid back in. And remember, they said he tossed him up on the couch. Then later on, they moved the kid to the bedroom, turned the TV on for him. They propped the chair under the door so the kid couldn't get out and left him there. Shocking. Anything else? So like I said, some of these stories here and incidents in the book come from real life, okay? So in real life, how this whole situation kind of went down was I was a young guy sitting on a bench and, a couple of my friends, and an older guy that I knew told me to take a walk with him. So in real life, I was like the African kid, but I didn't have a shotgun, obviously. I was just a stupid kid following around somebody older. And we wound up going up into their apartment. Now, the whole thing with the kid out the window actually really happened, okay? In real life, Jose wasn't there. The threat was made. I was just basically backed up against the wall, crapping my pants, okay? I was just scared to death. I was frozen. And the guy I was with, put on a big scary act, and it wasn't an act. He was really a scary guy. I had never seen him like that, but he was a super scary guy. No one got killed, obviously, and not in front of me. And from what it turned out to be, I think Jose wound up, paying what he owed without anybody dying. Okay. Any other questions? Was that too much? You guys could understand me though, right? Yeah? Okay. Okay. Sometimes the accent is a bit much for some people. I think I dated a girl once for 2 years, and she said, yeah, it took me about 8 months to figure out what you were saying. Okay. So if there's an issue, let me know. Okay. You want a little more? Should I read more, or are you guys bored to death here? Want another chapter? Okay, so like I said, in this book, it's not that killer gangster stuff every chapter. I kind of like to, I know that time is short. We're all fighting for people's entertainment dollars and time, right? Time is of the essence. So that's actually one of the longer chapters in the book. I like to keep the chapters short, and that's the opening chapter of the book. Okay, and I wanted to get some action in right away. There's some shock value, of course, as well, but hopefully you guys were entertained by that. Did you guys like it at all? Did it suck? Would you tell me if it did? You didn't understand it? Nothing? Cool. Okay, so I should probably tell you a little bit about the characters. All right, so there's Anthony here, who is kind of a henchman, as you can kind of imagine, right? He's the guy that goes around collecting and putting the hurt on people. The African kid is with him, okay? As you mentioned in there, he was someone that Peter, who's a main character, recruited from one of the shelters downtown in New York City. This was not uncommon. A lot of times, gangsters recruit refugees who are in tough situations, who may be by themselves in a shelter system. They may get these guys, put a gun in these guys' hands, and get them some money and put them to work. So this is not something I just thought of. All right, I've actually seen this happen. Okay. unfortunately. All right. So Peter is the boss of this operation. He is sort of a guy who's been a big gangster his whole life and is now sort of moving into more legitimate operations. Okay. So that's who Peter is. I will read another chapter. Again, it won't affect the plot at all, but I did mention that sometimes I do have characters who are not really involved in the actual story, but who do pop up. And then I like to give them a little, I like to show what their background is all about. Okay. So this won't be violent. Okay. There won't be any, sticking children out of windows or anything like that. Okay. We all set? You guys are still awake? I appreciate you guys staying awake today too. After lunch was always tough for me. All right, so here we go. It was one of those beautiful Sunday mornings, and from the back seat of his Rolls-Royce Phantom, New York City looked like a postcard. Peter's chauffeur for the day was House, an interesting fellow in his own right. 15 years ago, House was a can't-miss prospect from a powerhouse school in the Big Ten Conference. That's football, everybody. American football. At 6'6" and close to 300 pounds, he was considered a freak of nature. He could run down the quickest of quarterbacks and could push aside the strongest offensive lineman in college football. Sports Illustrated ran a 2-page feature on House right before the NFL Combine. The hype machine was going full tilt. In the interview, he mentioned his love of gourmet cooking and how he wanted to open youth centers across America for disadvantaged children. They covered his love for martial arts. He was a third-degree black belt in Taekwondo and a black belt in Aikido as well. He joked that if football doesn't work out, there's always room for the next action hero in Hollywood. House became a media darling with his quick wit and infectious smile. The combines came, and every scout in the country came to see what he could do. The pressure was on, and House came up aces. He ran a 4.5 40-yard dash and bench pressed the standard 225 pounds an astounding 51 times. The scouts were drooling all over themselves. Preview shows before NFL Draft Day had him moving up the charts rapidly, many predicting he could go top 10, maybe even top 5. The scouts had done their homework. They tapped into all aspects of his life. They knew who his great-grandfather was. They knew what his Aunt May got for Christmas 2 years ago. Everything checked out. No steroids, no crack pipes, no hidden paternity suits, no dead hookers in the closet. All he had left on his agenda was to shake the commissioner's hand 2 days later at the draft and smile for the camera. He was going to the NFL, the National Football League, and he was going to be a star. The entire behind-the-scenes work had been done, and the backroom deals were made. It was all set. An NFC East team would trade their starting running back and their 5th-round draft pick to an AFC West team that held the number 4 pick in the draft. That AFC West team would select House with that pick, then send him east. He was going number 4 overall. On the evening before the draft, a private investigator for that NFC East team followed House and a few of his friends and family. The investigator watched the superstar-to-be had dinner, toasting his future and shedding tears with his loved ones. All of the hard work had paid off. He thanked his mom and thanked his friends for sticking by him. He joked and thanked his agent for advancing him the cash for the brand new BMW as well. He reminisced about growing up poor and mentioned with his newfound wealth, he could help kids who grew up under similar set of circumstances. There wasn't a dry eye on the table when his mother stood up to talk. She called him her gentle giant and spoke glowingly about how he would come home from football practice and help his younger siblings with their homework, and how he would cook them dinner while she worked a double shift as a nurse's assistant at the local hospital. His younger sisters sat beaming at their older brother. They laughed and joked about some of his early adventures in the kitchen, but admitted they never ate so good. The private investigator later mentioned that he damn near cried himself as he sat 2 tables away watching. He had never seen something so genuine in all of his years. He was a special kid, one that would do the organization proud, both on and off the field. After the dinner was over, as a mere formality, the investigator followed House home. He stayed 2 cars behind as House dropped off his sisters and continued on until he had one last passenger, his friend from the neighborhood. The investigator was so tired that he almost missed it and rubbed his eyes frantically to make sure he hadn't. In the front seat next to House sat his best friend, Lamont, and he and Lamont turned out to be more than friends. The investigator sat in disbelief as House and Lamont carried on like lovers in the front seat of the BMW. House parked his car and walked hand in hand inside with his partner. They did not come out until morning. The private investigator, still reeling from the shock of it all, picked up the phone and dialed the team's general manager. As was his duty, he told him what he saw. The general manager was beside himself. "Are you sure? Are you positive?" he said over and over again, but he knew it had to be true. This was beyond anything they had uncovered in a long time. This was the National Football League. Over the years, murder suspects, rapists, wife beaters, cokeheads, gangbangers, drug dealers, all suited up on Sundays. As long as they could get it done on the field, all were accepted as players. Having a gay teammate in an NFL locker room was a different kind of ball game. What would happen once his teammates found out? The media frenzy would be unbearable, and the team would be torn apart. These were football players, after all, just a bunch of jocks. To be called a fag was the ultimate insult. How would the kid last under the pressure? It turned out the particular NFC East team from that so coveted House 2 days ago was unwilling to find out. They nixed the trade, and word spread fast among the insiders of the rest of the team as to why. The kid that had been dubbed the next Reggie White fell off the depth charts. Once predicted to go in the top 5 and labeled a can't-miss prospect, House never even got drafted. He sat there for the first 2 rounds on national television, a camera focused in on his face after each player with lesser talent got drafted in front of him. It was humiliating. His mother and his family sat there with him in astonishment. They yelled and screamed, wondering why their boy was being passed over. "What's going on? What's happening?" House knew why. After 15 picks or so, he figured it all out. He had been naive enough to think it wouldn't matter. He thought his talent would carry him above the fear and the misconceptions. He even entertained thoughts that someday he would be accepted as the first openly gay superstar in team sports history. He had it all planned out. He would play 4 or 5 years under the radar. He would break records, win Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year. He would lead the league in sacks. He would go to the Pro Bowl every year. He would do commercials for Nike and McDonald's and host charity events on television. Maybe do guest appearances on cooking shows, telling little boys that even 300-pound football players know how to cook. Give mom a break today, kids. Then he would lead his team to the Super Bowl. It would be then, as he stood holding the trophy in front of all of his adoring fans and the billion-plus people watching him on television all around the world, he would tell the world he was gay. "That's right, I'm a homosexual." And in this fantasy of his, no one would care. His teammates would embrace him and say he was the best teammate they ever had, and they could care less about what he did in the bedroom as long as he kept doing what he did on the field. Magazines and newspapers would splash his picture everywhere. He would be the poster child for tolerance, an advocate for gay rights. Other players would come out of the closet too. He would do for gays what Jackie Robinson did for blacks. He would become a pioneer that would forever transcend the world of sports. You could almost hear the crash of the real world of professional sports landing on top of its latest victim. Teams not looking to be scrutinized did what they could to shift the focus elsewhere. There were reports now that House had an attitude problem, and did poorly on his aptitude tests. Psychology reports had him labeled as a walking time bomb, full of emotional problems. There were alleged leaks of him failing drug tests, steroids, cocaine, marijuana, whatever the public would buy. And they bought it all. Another great story of a kid who had all the talent in the world and pissed it all away. Sports was full of those stories. What was one more? He thought about suing the NFL, but that was like the cashier at register number 7 in Boise, Idaho, trying to sue Walmart. It wasn't going to happen. Privately, he met with the commissioner of the league and was told how truly sorry he was for the unfortunate events that transpired on draft day. He said that he hoped House would stay in shape and someday one of the owners would call him to camp, maybe offer him a contract in spite of it all. The league picked up the tab for the BMW and thanked House for coming out. When he shook hands with the commissioner and left his office, he knew it was over. There would be no tryouts. There would be no training camps. There was no owner of an NFL franchise with the stomach to be the first to sign an athlete to his team with the knowledge that the player was gay. It wasn't going to happen. It was a hard fact of life that he had to start dealing with. House sold the BMW a week later and took his act on the road. He invested in a restaurant in Tribeca, but after a year, it went out of business. He basically majored in football when he went to school and found that not too many people were comfortable hiring a 6'6", 300-pound black man to work at their place of business. What if we had to fire him one day? Then what? The negative press he got following the draft didn't help with those who recognized him either. The rest is his story, and today, here he is. Thank you. Any questions? Anybody get that?
So I was wondering if the stories are chronological or what, or yeah, is it, I guess, stream of conscious, or is it kind of events happening chronological?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, the book is pretty much in chronological order. So for this guy here, he was the driver for Peter. Okay, Peter is Anthony's boss in the book, and he was the driver. Most of it is in chronological order. The stories that I might tell as far as the background of each character, that would go back in time, right? But so as far as telling their story, so for example, right there, House, what's going on with House is happening live, right? He's driving, he's the chauffeur for Peter. So what I did was just go back, tell what brought him to the circumstance, what set of circumstances brought him to where he's at now. Okay? Because a lot of times, we get characters or even we meet people on the street or in class, and you kind of wonder, what's their story? What got them here? Right? So that's what I did with these characters, even the small characters. House is not a big character in the book at all. Okay? But I thought there was an interesting story to tell, and I told it through that character. Anything good? We all. What time is it? You guys out of here now?
Yeah, the class is coming to an end, but I'll see if there's another question, and then.
Guys got to hustle, huh? Yeah. Okay.
See, now it's good. Oh, you said we didn't think we ever have the opportunity to meet a published author, so you said thank you.
Oh, hey, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I appreciate it. Absolutely. Thank you. And Heather, thank you so much for hosting. Is there any other questions? Yeah. Yeah, that opening story, that opening chapter that I read, that was a pretty unforgettable moment in my life. Obviously, I enhanced it, but that was pretty unforgettable. I think that I would also, I was in the military for a little bit as well. I was looking at ways to maybe tie in some of those global experiences, um, into writing as well. So as far as being in a war experience, or getting shot at, and or just seeing different countries through that sort of lens is something that I'd like to put into writing someday. Yeah, it won't be in the next book, but it there won't be any wartime stories in the next book, but yeah, that's down the line for sure. It's a pleasure. Absolutely. Ottawa Black Business Association. Again, the name of my book, The Black Men Who Struck Oil. My name is Jay Rell, Jayre to the double L. And thank you so much for having me. Good luck, guys. Thank you. Appreciate it. Immigrants United. Let's go. Take care, guys. Have a good day. Have a great journey. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you, Heather. That was fun. Am I off?